just a small alpha, we are actually working on a Paribus NFT collection, which will have utilities on the Paribus platform itself. We do plan to launch the NFT collection both on Cardano, so it's Cardano native NFTs, and the EVM side as well.
What is going on, ADA Nation? Welcome to the Dapp Central YouTube channel. My name is Fareed, and in today's video, I've got two special guests here from the Paribus team joining me on this live stream, which is going to be Dennis as well as Simon. Welcome aboard, you guys. How are you guys doing?
Hey, thanks for having us. We're doing well. Hope you're good as well.
Thanks, man. Pleasure to join.
I am doing great. Again, thank you both for your time. I know the past few weeks have been extremely busy for the both of you, given the fact that you guys have not only launched on the Arbitrum mainnet, but you guys have also just created a bridge bridging over from Ethereum over into Cardano. So as a part of today's video, that is actually what I want to chat about. Now, as always, I want to give the viewers a quick heads up as to some of the topics that we'll be breaking down in today's video, which include, as I mentioned, the migration or the bridge from Ethereum over into Cardano. We're also going to take a second to chat a little bit about VyFi and the fact that you guys now have introduced the first staking opportunity for the Cardano community. Following that, we'll briefly touch on your roadmap as well as your AI valuation tool. And then there was a little bit of alpha dropped on a video which was shot by Dennis not too long ago surrounding some Paribus user run oracles. In closing, we're going to touch on regulations. And then if you guys want to drop any alpha along the way, you're more than welcome to do so. How does that sound to you guys?
Sounds good. Let's get going.
Sounds great, man. Let's get started.
Perfect. So let's just jump straight into it. I've already had Dennis on the channel. We kind of talked about what Paribus is, but in a very, very brief nutshell, do you mind just kind of explaining what Paribus is, but then just jumping straight into the recent Cardano migration that you guys have just done, bridging over from Ethereum into Cardano?
Sure. So what is Paribus? Paribus is effectively a cross-chain borrowing and lending platform. It's by nature cross-chain because that's how we position ourselves from the start. We are trying to build bridges between different chains, whether they're EVM, non-EVM, i.e. Ethereum, Cardano. And what sets us apart from our competition is we accept the conventional crypto assets as a collateral. So we're talking about ADA, ETH, Bitcoin, etc. But on top of that, and our USP is that we accept NFTs, which are PFP NFTs at the moment. LP tokens, synthetics, and in the near future, metaverse land as a collateral form, allowing people to unlock the liquidity that's basically currently locked and you can't really utilize unless you're selling the asset outright, to borrow against them based on a dynamic interest rate model and fund your next venture, whatever that may be.
Awesome. Thank you for that brief intro. So you guys are providing a synthetics platform, not only focusing on fungible tokens, but also on NFTs. I think that's one of the biggest offerings you guys really are bringing to the spaces. You guys are working on both sides of the equation. Now, you guys initially were working on launching on Ethereum. You guys have already launched on the mainnet on Arbitrum, but you guys have recently also launched a Cardano native token. And for the longest time, there was no way to actually bridge your assets over from Ethereum over into Cardano. So do you mind maybe kind of speaking on the recent collaboration with ChainPort.io and what new features and what new opportunities this bridge opens up for the Paribus protocol?
Sure. Let me get started on that.
Yeah, Simon can get going.
Yeah. So, I mean, with ChainPort, we are in talks since quite some while. They were always our initial or preferred bridging partner, I would say. The problem we had for a long time is that our token on Cardano was minted with a fixed supply. So we had to wait for ChainPort in order to supply this kind of tokens. How ChainPort usually works is if you bridge over, like, let's say, an asset from Ethereum to Cardano, they will mint the Cardano version using their bridge automatically. However, the problem we had is that we already had an existing token on Cardano as well as on Ethereum. So effectively, the bridge couldn't work because at that time, it could only work if you mint one side. So recently, like a week or two ago, we went to talk again to ChainPort, and they told us that we can now use these native tokens, how we call them. And yeah, I mean, that's what the partnership is about. More is to come soon. Hopefully this week, we will also integrate the Arbitrum site to fulfill basically all 3 networks that we are currently on. And that's so far from the bridging side.
Got it. Thank you for that. And I think this kind of begs the question, what is Paribus's plans in terms of adoption? You just mentioned Arbitrum, so that'll be another bridge, right? But do you guys potentially have any other plans on releasing the PBX token or potentially bridging to any other networks that you guys kind of have in your sights?
Yeah, I mean, definitely one network that will be important for us is Milkomeda, the sidechain of Cardano, given that we will also launch our governance there. That was always our vision, to have the governance as close as possible towards the Cardano community. And yeah, that's our preferred solution. So definitely we will include that into the ChainPort Bridge as well.
Got it. I'm definitely looking forward to that. I actually just released a video on my personal channel breaking down the process. And one of the biggest bits of feedback that I received from the community was how easy and how understandable it was, right? I think that's one of the biggest proponents that ChainPort has. And that's actually one of the biggest bridging providers that I have seen now kind of branching out into Cardano. We have Meld, we have World Mobile, we have Cornucopias, we have PBX now, and we also even have Genius X, which have all now chosen to partner with ChainPort. So I'm really happy to hear that you guys have chosen them. And again, the fact that they are making this process really easy to understand, because you have people that might have had tokens on Ethereum that maybe were not familiar with the bridging infrastructure, but they're able to quickly and easily get in there and migrate their tokens over to Cardano. Dennis, I think you wanted to say something earlier. Did you maybe want to touch on the bridge at all?
Oh, yeah. So regarding our plans, well, I guess we could follow up later on with this question, because I don't want to sort of mix up the topics, but it was sort of relating to why we chose to move to Cardano in the current phase, and how we plan to, and what we plan to do with the CNT token specifically. We can come back to it, or I can answer it now. It's totally up to you.
I think you can go ahead and just knock it out now. I'm excited to hear what you got to say.
All right. So one of the reasons why we started focus on CNT and the Cardano side of things is because we realized that DeFi in general is growing, but there is a demand in the Cardano space for more platforms to come on board. And of course, it's been always our goal to sort of move into Cardano, whether it's directly moving into Cardano with a native application or whether through sidechain application. Milkomeda is still our option number 1, but we have started researching into AIKEN, the Python-based Cardano native language, which is giving us good hope that we can potentially port over Paribus application to Cardano. Obviously, I'm not going to set any dates or any sort of explicit information around it, but this is something that we're working on, which was also on the back foot, and why we actually decided to move forward with the bridge, because we want to actually start moving into the Cardano space a little bit more aggressively now. So that's something that I wanted to mention. And yeah, we're looking into AIKEN and developing the platform using the AIKEN language.
That is huge. And that actually, I think, kind of knocks out some of the questions that I had received in prior videos. I know since last year, when you guys first mentioned the Cardano native token, the community's follow-up question to that was, well, if we have a Cardano native token, does that also mean that we're going to be getting an application on Cardano? And I remember at that time, it was like, hey, there was no AIKEN, and everything would have kind of had to been done from scratch, therefore really kind of being extremely costly. But leveraging a platform like AIKEN, I think number one, it's open source, but then number two, it really cuts down on a lot of the development time as well as the cost that it would take for you guys to build from scratch. So that's really huge and exciting news for me to hear. And I'm sure that the Cardano community will be extremely excited to hear that as well, that Paribus will be looking to make that impact here on the Cardano network. So thank you for that. I guess any closing thoughts or mentions surrounding the bridge and just the collaboration with ChainPort in general?
Just a thing to touch upon. I mean, ChainPort is quite diverse in sort of number of chains that they support in both EVM and non-EVM world. So as Simon mentioned earlier, you will be seeing a new announcement of the Arbitrum side. So you could actually go from native application, well, the current deployed application directly to Cardano side. You don't have to go sort of Arbitrum, Ethereum back to Cardano, etc. So you will have this direct link soon. Hopefully, we plan to release this news this week, depending on how things go. And you could expect to hear and see us on a couple more Cardano dexes in this upcoming week and the next week. So we have some news on that front as well that we are keen to share with the community.
You guys are just coming out with updates back to back to back. So we have the launch of the bridge. We've got adoption in terms of dexes. We've got an additional potential bridge between Arbitrum. And there's one other thing that you guys actually had a Twitter space about yesterday, and that is going to be VyFi Staking. So that's going to take us into the next question or the next topic here for today's video. So this is going to be the first ever Paribus staking opportunity on the Cardano network. And as I mentioned, this will be in collaboration with VyFi. So do you guys maybe mind, breaking down what this opportunity is, how it's going to work, and then also how will this staking differ from vePBX staking, which will be as a part of your governance model?
Sure. Simon, do you want to run through how it works and what it means? And then I'll just sort of go around the business decisions and why we did such things.
No, if you could start it with why finance, I would take the governance part.
Okay. So VyFi, we were in touch, I think a couple of weeks ago. We started discussing how to best bring our CNT token. We were looking for a DEX to bring the token on board. We did speak to a couple of others, but we thought VyFi is pretty good in terms of user traction, TVO, etc. Although they do have their sort of pros and cons. It might be slower than some other DEXs, but we believe the TVO and the number of users on there is pretty good. So we decided to proceed with them. So the way it's the staking on VyFi is effectively yield farm, right? So you provide liquidity and then you will get PBX tokens as a reward. So you get the fees from the DEX plus the PBX tokens additional bonus and plus some VY tokens that VY itself will actually run as a promotional period to incentivize more liquidity. So it's different to our native governance and staking, because our native governance staking is actually more to do with getting token holders involved in the direction the platform is going to go in the near future, which is more, of course, you have more of a say in what the platform is going to achieve. Whereas this staking is more to track liquidity and to engage users in the token so that we can start to sort of ramp up our efforts going towards Cardano ecosystem. And, we're out there, everybody hears about PBX, etc. The other reason behind it is that from day one, we've always said that, yes, we are the co-founder team and the central team right now, but we never want to remain here like forever. We always wanted to fade out. And one of the ways that we're fading out is by handing over these tokens that are currently in ecosystem allocation or foundation allocation to potential token holders and parties who are interested in our platform. Of course, to give these tokens out, there's very few ways that you do it, right? You sell it through the market, which we don't really necessarily do that because we don't want to sell it. And the second part is through incentivization programs. So we have one incentivization program running on Arbitrum Mainnet where you actually get paid in PBX bonus to borrow funds. So that's one way we're giving the tokens away. Of course, the secondary effect of that is more people are incentivized to borrow, which means more fees for the platform, which obviously is a good positive feedback loop for the token and the platform overall. And then the second mechanism that we're now introducing is through VyFi Staking. So we're going to give these incentives in tranches. You'll first see us on VyFi doing this. You'll see us on another DEX doing this, and then you'll see us on a third DEX on the Cardano side doing this. Our intention is to give the token to those people who are actually genuinely interested. And eventually over time, we basically stop as a central entity controlling a large percentage of the token supply, but now we actually transition into where token holders are the community, which is the perfect stepping stone to becoming a DAO. So I guess that's the business around it. Simon, do you want to add anything else to sort of VyFi and the staking mechanism that is coming up?
Not directly to VyFinance, just about the governance staking. I mean, obviously, vePBX is the token that will be used when you lock a PBX into our governance, and that's the token you will receive back. vePBX has a few features that makes it completely different to PBX itself. First of all, we have something called time-weighted voting. So basically, you have the option later to lock up PBX for a longer period, which will basically give you a bigger boost in your voting power. The benefit of this is not only the voting power, but also when we do revenue sharing later through fees that are generated from our platform, then this will apply as well. So the longer you lock up your token in the governance, the more boost you will basically have to get part out of this revenue share. That's all from my side.
Got it. Thank you. And so I think, my understanding in terms of how this differs, the staking done through VyFi is strictly a way to disperse and reward the community, whereas the actual vePBX token will be used for governance and the actual driving direction of the protocol. Is that accurate?
Yeah, exactly. If we want an analogy with a Web2 side of things, of course, we're not a centralized company, so we don't have stock. But if you were to sort of map it across that, vePBX would be under the umbrella of common stock kind of thing, because you basically have voting rights and you are a shareholder and you basically have full rights and authority over the protocol. Whereas the VyFi staking platform is more preferred because you don't necessarily have voting rights with that staking mechanism, but you are subject to recouping some of the fees through VyFi.
Got it. So let's jump into the next topic here for today's video. Again, I want to thank you both for coming online. And for the viewers, if you guys are enjoying this video, please make sure to go ahead and tap that like button and also double check all of the description items below. I'll be leaving the links to VyFi Staking as well as the Paribus application down there for you guys. So next thing I want to jump into is going to be surrounding your roadmap and how the progress is going. So you guys recently released, and this was actually towards the beginning of the year when I had Simon on, a 2023 roadmap here for the community. Now, as a part of the roadmap, we had an MVP, which you guys have delivered on. We also have governance, which you guys just gave us an update on. And then we have the integration of NFTs, institutional adoption through Paribus Pro, and then the incorporation of your metaverse lands, which I think is going to be one of your key offerings. So in respect to timelines and just the roadmap in general, do you guys want to share anything in terms of how things are going and how things are looking right now, given the fact that we're just breaking into Q3 of the year?
Simon, do you want to run through the roadmap and what we've done so far?
Yeah, I mean, what we've done so far, I mean, as you said, we delivered the MVP, and it's working good so far on Arbitrum. The next thing which will likely be released is the NFT side of things, as that is currently undergoing an audit. So that should hopefully be released before the governance, but don't quote me on that. And then obviously the governance as well. Governance is almost done from our side in terms of development, so that should go to an audit company relatively soon as well. On Paribus Pro, I mean, that's always an ongoing effort. We have some partners there in line, which we are going to use, for example, to do an on-chain KYC in order to make sure that for an institutional approach, all the funds that are like in these pools, you went through in KYC and we know where they're coming from and which parties are in this type of product. So Paribus Pro will be a separate product from Paribus itself. And then obviously Metaverse, that's a big topic for us. We have a lot of plans there. We actually have our Paribus headquarter already designed and kind of like ready to go. We just wait on Pavia to help us a bit there. And I would say that's like the latest updates from the development side.
Got it.
Yeah. Just to add a couple more things, so that's not on the roadmap, because we are actually going to update the website, the roadmap, and the white paper in the next month or two, because we want to prepare for the NFT side of things. So when we launch, it's sort of like a big launch where we launch the NFT side, the website, the white paper, and the updated roadmap. one of the things that is not mentioned on the roadmap is um, the real world assets, the real asset backed NFTs. So this is something that we're back channeling and sort of working behind the scenes on, because I personally believe real world assets, NFTs, are going to be the next big trend, especially with the upcoming, hopefully upcoming bull market. And once that happens, I think PFPs will always be there, but they serve a very niche use case and very niche sort of market. And if we want NFTs to grow beyond what they are today, we have to look at the next set of use cases. And one of the best use cases for it is RWAs. So Paribus is working on behind the scenes with a few partners where we're trying to formulate a way to take custody of physical assets, or at least rely on providers of physical asset and custodianship partners, and then use those NFTs as a collateral type as well on the Paribus platform. In terms of the code changes, there really won't be much. It would actually be much easier to support RWA NFTs as opposed to PFP, because PFPs are very dynamic. It's all data driven, like volume, holders, etc. Whereas a RWA, if you're tokenizing, turning your, let's say, a Rolex watch into an NFT, I mean, there's a valuation service that it goes through, and then the value is pretty much there. It doesn't change, and it's not as volatile, so it's easier to value and provide a loan against it. So that's something that we're working on, which needs to be updated and put on the roadmap. But aside from that, yeah, I mean, I would say we're pretty comfortable with our roadmap, and we are actually in the process of hiring one more blockchain engineer, senior blockchain engineer. So he should be joining us around the 28th of this month, so in about 10 days. So that should hopefully boost our speed of development a little bit more, and we can push products out faster, hopefully.
Also, to add something really quick, one area we are looking heavily in this topic of RWAs is tokenized real estate. So that's a topic we are really keen on supporting as well on our platform, as basically a lot of people these days own real estate. However, in general, I find it quite complicated to borrow against it, other than you go through your centralized bank and whatsoever. So that's something we want to support on Paribus as well, that technically you could go to a provider, tokenize, I don't know, your house, and it has a value locked in, and then you can later borrow and lend against if you want, obviously. But that's an area we are heavily looking into as well.
That's really impressive to hear. It's interesting that you guys are expanding into this, kind of sector or this part of the ecosystem. I know that we have a few projects which are also working on very similar things. And one thing that I like to always say is that competition drives innovation, right? So I think the more people that we have trying to provide utility in real world assets in a tokenized way on chain, the better. Similar to like we saw with wallets, for example, NIME, Typhon, et cetera. And then we're also kind of seeing a race to the top for dexes as well, right? We've got MinSwap, Sunday Swap, all these other dexes that are now building. But what you'll notice is that as we get more competitors, there's more and more ideas which come to the top, right? So I'm happy to hear that Paribus is going to be entering this race here of providing tokenized and real world assets here, some value on the blockchain. And then congratulations on the onboarding of that brand new member. Again, I think those are updates that the community needs to hear, especially when it comes to, timelines and development and things of that nature. So I think that's going to wrap it up there for the 2023 roadmap. The next thing I want to jump into is going to be surrounding your AI valuation model. So what we were just looking at there was the roadmap. And when we're looking at the roadmap, two big pieces there are going to be the NFTs and the metaverse land. Now, one key piece here is how will Paribus actually identify the valuation or the value of these assets, right? So I want to pose this question to the both of you guys, and maybe you guys, take turns answering, but what is the plan here when it comes to how Paribus is going to be integrating and having this AI valuation model learn based off of the ever-changing floor prices and just attributes of these NFTs over time, right? Given NFT might be worth X amount today, but it might be worth X amount 6 months from now. How is that going to work? And then secondly, will Paribus be able to monetize this valuation model, especially if it's one of the first on the market? Because again, I think a lot of the valuations that we're seeing right now are just end users typing in a number in a box and saying, hey, I have this NFT, I'm looking at the floor price and I want this much for it, right? But there's no real data points behind why it's worth what it is and why they're asking what they're asking for.
Yeah. So I guess I'll start, and then Simon, you can jump in where you see fit. So in terms of how we develop the valuation, so we mentioned this a couple of times. I think there's a little bit of a misconception where we are not, as Paribus, developing an AI model as to value these NFTs. We are partnering with individuals and companies who have actually developed these models and provide this data to us. So what we do is we have about 5 partners right now who are essentially startups within the Web2 and Web3 business, who are able to value digital assets based on data points. And we are integrating with all 5 at the same time and basically sending out a query to these guys saying, how much is this NFT worth in according to your algorithm? That comes back to us. And then we run it through an internal algorithm to say, okay, this valuation came from here, this valuation came from here based on these data points. And then we say, okay, we believe the average weighted price or valuation across all 5 is this. And then that would be the value, the final value that our end users on Paribus will see. And if they accept it, there will be a whole flow of writing that off-chain price mechanism on-chain, and then keeping tabs on that valuation where once we write it on chain, we continuously keep track of the underlying NFT off chain. And if the off chain price deviates from the on chain price at any point more than 3%, there will be a new write on chain with the new valuation. And this way we are continuously watching the mechanisms of the pricing, because if you rely on a single data point like TWAP, I know a lot of companies rely on TWAP as a data point to value these NFTs or floor prices, but relying on a single floor price, relying on a single data point, it's open to manipulation. You can, if you hold enough ETH, if you hold enough ADA, you could pump up a CNFTs or ETH NFTs price up and down as you wish. So we chose this method instead of that because we think it's more resilient and more reliable. And we essentially are building our own version of in-house Oracle system onto this valuation service. So the valuation service is off-chain, which means it's chain agnostic, and you could use it anywhere you want. And that actually ties in with your next question: is how do we plan to, or if we plan to monetize? Yes, we do plan to monetize it. And we want to open this API off-chain component to the world, subject to PBX payments effectively. So you would need to have some sort of subscription that is only payable in PBX, and you can value anything from PNFPs to metaverse lands, anything that's effectively within the NFT realm. You could potentially value it and make sense of the data as you wish.
Simon, I'll give you a second to respond, and then I've got some follow-ups as well.
To add to that, also about the topic of how we are going to monetize it. We are also looking down the route of possibly having like a decentralized distribution of our basically software that like collects all these data sources and then makes like their own valuation. So we are also looking to possibly run this as kind of like node provider software. So that's something we are looking into, to have it possibly run decentralized by multiple entities, people, PBX holders, however you want to call it. And they basically all then agree on chain together, like, hey, this should be the new valuation. Because, the moment I query the API and you would query, there could be a difference, hopefully only very slightly, but you never know in what moment you query the data. So we are trying to distribute the software to different parties in order to have like the best average valuation from all sides.
Got it. That is really interesting to hear. So what I got there as some of the main highlights was that this particular solution will be blockchain agnostic, right? So PBX will be able to implement this across any platform that their lending and borrowing is live on. And that should be able to be done almost seamlessly, right? If you guys are doing this in a blockchain agnostic way. And then the second big piece there was that this is going to potentially be an additional stream of revenue for the actual Paribus protocol, right? So I think obviously the more revenue streams, the better. Obviously it streamlines and it funds additional development, but also provides additional utility back over to PBX token holders. So that's really interesting to hear. And then very lastly, what Simon just mentioned there surrounding the community being able to kind of chip in and kind of run some of these nodes, I think is really, really big, right? So my next topic or my next question then is going to be surrounding something that Dennis had mentioned on a chat with, I believe it was the Cardano spot, actually. It was about 2 to 3 months ago. Now, during this particular chat with Dennis, he had mentioned a Oracle solution that was being investigated, right? So there was no confirmation about it actually coming to PBX, but it was going to be a user-run Oracle platform rewarding users who are operating these oracles the ability to potentially earn some PBX. So I was just wondering, I've had comments about this. Could you guys maybe speak as to any additional findings or maybe any concrete solutions that you guys have found since then?
Yeah, so that relates to what Simon just went through. Effectively, the valuation mechanism that we're building is effectively a Oracle solution for exotic assets. And initially, the foundation, Paribus Foundation, will run the Oracle, which means we are the only participants in that Oracle network. I mean, if you look at Chainlink has a lot of providers right now. And it continuously expands. That's effectively what we want to become, but for exotic assets, so for non-conventional crypto assets, effectively. The way we would plan to probably do that is by keeping things off-chain as much as possible. So it's easy to integrate. So even Web2 developers can just come on board, read a couple of API documentations, and understand immediately what needs to be done. As well as Web3 developers, of course. We want to achieve this in a way where it's sort of, it is a decentralized system and it's a distributed system. So we made a few plans around how this can be achieved. Without diving into too many technical details, you can think of it like a GET client, like a GET client from Ethereum side of things, where you basically spin up this software and you become available on the network. And then if you have a certain stake, let's say a certain X amount of PBX, then you can now start participating in this network automatically and start serving data to whoever is requesting it. And upon serving data, you will of course be rewarded back in PBX for providing that data across the network. So we will probably make a variation of GEF client kind of mechanism to make sure everything is in sync and everything's sort of distributed as much as possible. But the design and the architecture will come after the current roadmap items are finished, because of course we want to deliver on our current promises before we skip over and start talking about decentralized oracles and sort of going way beyond what the project was initially scoped out to be.
Understood.
Sorry, to add to that real quick, just as another thing that Dennis didn't mention, this will also allow us basically, let's say right now, if we as Paribus Foundation would run this Oracle solution, it would be kind of hard for us to support all kind of different NFT collections, given the huge amount of data. However, when we allow the community to run this, as Dennis said, they can just chip in and provide data. This also opens up the possibility, similar to how the graph, for example, allows indexers to index subgraph definitions. So someone could say, hey, okay, I have a project of this NFT collection. I need price feeds for that in the future, or like valuations. I'm now happy to pay PBX reward in order for node operators to start bringing in valuations for this kind of NFT collection. So this would allow everyone in the future to bring in new NFT collection valuations, basically for paying that, and node operators would fulfill this this data and write it on chain. Like requesting a new price feed in Chainlink, for example, where some teams provide like the rewards for the node operators.
Thank you for the additional clarification there, Simon. Again, I think this opens up a can of opportunities for Paribus and the utility of the actual PBX token. I'm really interested to see which direction you guys take this. And I think this is, again, one of the key offerings that you guys are bringing to the spaces, the valuation, as well as the ability to borrow against those exotic assets that for the longest, they held a lot of liquidity, but there just was never really a solid way, an easy way to get the liquidity out of that in order to keep that potentially working for you somewhere else, right? We've got a lot of DeFi protocols which allow for you to come in and potentially take loans against your crypto collateral, but not necessarily your NFTs in a really easy and seamless fashion. Now, moving into, and did you want to add something there?
I was just going to say, not just NFTs, because if you look at the space that we're trying to hit, it's also LP tokens. So LP tokens are in abundance, right? Everybody provides liquidity to DEXs, whether it's EVM, non-EVM, it doesn't matter. You provide liquidity, you get LP tokens back. Currently, there are very few opportunities for these LP tokens to be utilized while they accrue in fee. One of the things that we want to unlock as the next, this is sort of a low-hanging fruit for us because the code base basically supports LPs. We just need to tweak it a little bit to make it available. So that's one of the exciting pieces that probably is not as exciting to the community as NFTs, because NFTs have a lot of spotlight on them. But I think there's a lot of demand for LPs and just idle tokens that sit in there. So I'm quite excited on the LP side of things, which I think is going to bring a lot of TVL to Paribus protocol over the next 2 quarters that we have left of this year.
You're really right. And I definitely did not mean to overshadow LPs by any means, right? I think a great use case here is, for example, like you guys collaborating with VyFi. I think they've kind of found a niche in allowing people to not only stake NFTs, but also stake and hold LP tokens on their platform as well. So you definitely are right. There's probably just as many LP or just regular fungible tokens out there as much as there are NFTs. And I think for me, I heard initially about Paribus through the NFT side of things. And so that's usually where I try to focus on, but you're definitely more than right that, there are other assets that you guys will provide real world use cases for. So that said, we are running at about 37 minutes so far. I want to respect both of your guys' time. And so the next thing I want to jump into is going to be surrounding the long-term vision that you guys have, as well as the regulations just within the blockchain and crypto space. I'm sure you guys have been keeping up with the times. We just had this huge ruling in regards to XRP. We've got Binance being sued by the SEC. We've got Coinbase being sued by the SEC. We already had Kraken being fined by the SEC. I think it was like $30 million. And just a lot of other things going on here with regards to regulations. So my question to the both of you here, as we get ready to kind of land the plane, what is Paribus doing to ensure its long-term growth, as well as just making sure to steer clear from any of the regulatory clouds that hang overhead right now?
Yeah, so I guess I'll open the floor by referring to the recent Ripple news that everybody seems to be enjoying in the crypto space right now. The reason being, I mean, I see that as a long-hanging fruit. I think a lot of other people see it the same way, because if Ripple is deemed not security, which it was, and Ripple had a lot of concerns regarding why people thought it could be potentially a security, and even with those concerns, it was deemed not to be a security, then I think the other cases that we have in our hands are even easier to deal with when you look at sort of the justifications why Ripple is not a security and the whole outcome of the decision. So this, of course, forces both SEC and the US regulators in general to become a bit more transparent with what they mean by security, what they mean by legislation, what they mean by regulation. Because right now everybody talks about this, and then you have these conferences, and then you have a bunch of these meetings in the White House, and then all these different things happening, but nobody really knows what is the regulation to stick by. I mean, even huge giants like Coinbase are struggling to understand what SEC means, and they have all that legal power and financial to back it. So this really forces SEC's hand to become more clear and more objective in the criteria, rather than sort of subjective of Gary and his cohorts, whatever they think is security at that time, they will just label it as security. So of course, I appreciate this decision, not because of the fact that Ripple was not deemed as a security, but because it's now forced upon SEC to become more clear. And with clarity comes a path for everyone to sort of walk on and say, okay, I need to do this, I can do this, I can't do that. So I think over time, the best thing we can do is keep up with the news, of course, keep up with the regulations, whether that's US regulations or EU regulations or another continent, etc., and sort of deliver according to what's legal and what's not legal. Once we know what it is, then we can work with it. So I'm happy, and and the way Paribus will keep afloat and keep ahead of the game is, as always, we have our legal advice, we have our legal counsel, who's quite successful in his career as well right now, and he's very informative in these different decisions and legislation coming through, and he will advise us to the best of his ability to say, you should take this decision, and we'll just follow suit. We're not going to sort of come off the path that is clear. If we have a path, we walk the path. If you don't have a path, you have to pave the path. So that's the way we see it.
Simon, anything you want to add?
No, he pretty much described it all.
Awesome. And I just wanted to also say, one thing that I've been really able to enjoy as Paribus has been going through this, and obviously the entire crypto space, has been getting to hear Dennis's as well as Wilson's input. Now, Wilson wasn't able to join us today. Hopefully he can join us on the next one. But I've been keeping up with the articles that you guys release, I want to say maybe every 2 to 3 days. And a lot of those not only focus on what Paribus is building, but also on the regulatory outlook and the macro economy that's impacting crypto. So I urge all the viewers here today, if you guys are maybe interested in hearing a little bit more about Dennis's, Simon, and Wilson's kind of thoughts, and just kind of getting a broader outlook on what's going on around us and how that could potentially impact PBX, just jump in there and follow them on Medium and check out those articles. I've definitely found those to be extremely helpful. So I think that will bring us here to the end of this interview. Again, I want to say thank you to Dennis and Simon for joining me here. As a part of this video, we broke down their recent collaboration and partnership with ChainPort. We talked about their VyFi staking. We broke down some updates surrounding the roadmap. We talked about their AI valuation model, as well as oracles and potentially rewarding users with PBX. And then we just ended this particular video by breaking down their long-term vision and some of the regulatory concerns, which we've just now got a little bit more clarity surrounding. So at this time, I'll turn it over to you guys for any closing or any key takeaways that you guys would like for the community to just kind of walk away with as we're closing this down.
Not much to add. I'm just going to say keep up with our Discord, Telegram, and Twitter channels. We do try to provide the latest news as soon as they become concrete. So as I mentioned, you should be expecting to hear from us regarding additional bridge paths between Arbitrum and other chains. You should be hearing a couple more news about Cardano-based DEXs. And just a small alpha, we are actually working on a Paribus NFT collection, which will have utilities on the Paribus platform itself. We do plan to launch the NFT collection both on Cardano, so it's Cardano native NFTs, and the EVM side as well. We'll probably work with our current bridge provider to allow that NFT to sort of bridge across so that you could use it during a processing of a loan or through governance, because it will have utilities tied to the whole feature set that the platform has.
What a way to end the interview. I wish you would have dropped that earlier, but you know what? I'm going to edit that in at just the right spot. Thank you for that amazing alpha. Simon, any closing thoughts?
No, not really. Just as always, guys, don't forget to use a hardware wallet. Software wallets are not safe.
Yep, not your keys, not your crypto, and definitely make sure to get into cold storage. that is going to wrap it up here for today's video. Again, if you guys enjoyed content like this, definitely make sure to tap that like button. I'll be leaving the links to all of the Paribus socials down below, as well as their application, which is now live on Arbitrum. And again, I want to say thank you to Dennis and Simon for joining me on today's video. That said, and as always, we'll catch you guys on the next one.